Always contacts first, occlusion secondary. Now, let's say everything is fitted and confirmed, and I'll walk you through everything. You're going to remove the abutment. I again soak it in the 2% chlorhexidine, and I put that original screw aside. You're not going to use that screw again, not for a final placement. Okay, just not for a final placement. So here's what I do. I take mineral oil and I gently blow air inside the crown after I have placed mineral oil. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a fast setting bite registration material, something that will set in 15 to 30 seconds. I like something very rigid, and this is from Kettenbach. I love their bite registrations. I mean, I know tons of companies make them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert the tip into the crown. The crown has mineral oil and it's been air dried. As you insert the tip of your bite registration, you're going to insert it into the crown and slowly pull out. So you're first on the bottom left, you insert it into the crown. Now as you're injecting the material, you're slowly pulling out. And on the far right, you will see as you're pulling out, you create a little handle. You wait 15 to 30 seconds and the material will set. As you pull it out, here is your registration of the internal anatomy of the crown. You can do this in the morning before your patient even comes in, or have your assistant do this. But now all you're going to do is you're going to take a 2-round burr. I don't care if 4 round, 1 round, it's up to you. And I want to score the buccal. Now, why would you score the buccal? Because I'm telling you, so many times these all look the same from buccal, lingual, mesial, distal. So you score the buccal so you know when you try the crown on this, it will be the buccal. So and I'll show you pictures later of another case with the buccal scored. So I'm going to go back. Once you have scored the buccal, now you're ready to begin the final cementation. So I'm going to torque in the final abutment again with a new screw. I'm going to place Teflon tape and I'm going to seal over the area and whatever material of choice you want to use. I'll show you a case I use Clip Flow now from Voco. I love it. It's clear, easy, simple to use, like cured. So it's torqued in and sealed. Now before you do anything else, you want to try in the crown again. Why? Because if the crown doesn't fit now, it's because of your access hole material. So what will happen is, if the crown doesn't fit, it means you have to trim your access hole material. You may have a little flick, a little fleck, whatever. Try it in again. This must fit perfectly. Okay? Fine. So you'll go, why do I torque my abutment always the first time? Because what I have found, and I think it's a dirty little secret in dentistry, is that if you don't torque your abutment down and try in your crown, and then at this point in the procedure now, you take your abutment and you torque it down for the first time and seal it, there'll be a micro movement and all of a sudden your contact is wrong. You've all seen this. And why has that happened? Because the internal connection is not perfect. I'm absolutely convinced of this, and there's a little micro movement. And as you torque, that little torque means a little twist, could be just a micro twist to get it fully seated, and that can throw off your contact. So I always torque when I'm trying in the crown originally, and then I always torque it, of course, when I'm about to deliver, just like I showed you. So once you know everything fits, you clean out the inside of the crown. You can, if it's a zirconia crown, you would micro-etch it with small particle alumina like 29 or 33, or you could use a water spray. It's up to you, just to clean out the Vaseline or the mineral oil. Then I routinely always apply Ivoclean or a new material called Zirconia from Bisco to the inside of the crown for 20 seconds, and I rinse that profusely after 20 seconds with water, and I dry it with air only syringes, air only. So you have an air water and an air syringe. So the inside now is dry. Okay. So now what do? It's time to cement the crown. So here's the simplicity of Ceramer. I'll show you the hand mix later. This is the triturator. Again, this was the material that the University of Texas found to be the most biocompatible. This is huge to me. So all you're going to do is push the cap down and triturate for 8 seconds. If you don't have a triturator, I do the hand mix. You're going to load the crown then. So what are we looking for in an ideal cement? Yeah, you want it radio opaque. I want it white because I want to see it. I want to see if there's any excess. I want a low film thickness, and I want it retentive. I want to have low viscosity. I want it to self-cure. I don't want resin in there. I want to easily remove it, and I want it biocompatible. This is my list. If you're using another cement, does it meet this list? Routinely, it's not biocompatible. Routinely. So here's the process. You load the Ceramer in the crown. You don't need a lot. Like that's the picture on the left. It's probably too much, but I'm taking pictures. So I'm just going to place a small amount. And then what you do is you take the crown and you insert it with the buckle dot on the buckle with your 2 round. Insert the crown onto your registration that you created. Immediately pull it off. On the left of the screen, you can see all the excess cement. On the right of the screen, I just take a piece of gauze to wipe away the excess cement on the outside. Now, when you look at this, you have a custom lined implant crown. And you're probably not going to see much implant cement. You're not going to see much Ceramer cement at all. You'll always see a little more cement all the way at the top of the crown and much less at the margin, which is perfect. Once I seat the crown, all I then do is blast water. I blast water with heavy water spray around, and I use thick floss. So blast with water and thick floss. If you want to use an Explorer, fine. But routinely, you're not going to use an Explorer because you're not going to see a lot of cement. And you're going to blast it with water, just rinse it away, and keep pressure on the crown. Now, this is Bill, and if you want to talk an AECD case, this isn't it. He's had 7 different implants placed over 12, 15 years. He's 86 years old and blah, blah, blah. The final setting time is 5 to 6 minutes with Ceramer. And this is how we've been maintaining Bill for decades. I just got to love his low smile line. So that's the cement approach. My last case will review it to a degree. Case 2, the hybrid implant restoration. So this is a case that came into my office, a patient we were seeing, and this is why I believe in cone beams. I have 2. I couldn't imagine not having cone beams in my practice. They're replacing full mouth series of x-rays in my practice. Why? This patient came in, seen in recall, and really nothing more than 4s in her mouth. And all of a sudden on 2D imaging, I'm just showing you, her pockets went from 5s to 7s to 9s. And I see nothing on a 2D. This is a 3D sagittal view. Let's go back. You see nothing on tooth number 3. If you do, then you're amazing because I see nothing. This is a sagittal view. Now you're looking at an endoperio lesion with tremendous bone loss. My endodontist felt there was a huge potential for a fracture because she calls this a J bone lesion. And she said if we try to treat it endodontically, there's a good chance it will not work and we'll lose tooth number 2 because if the lesion continues to grow. This is an axial view. You're looking occlusally down. In between 2 and 3, you can see the level of the bone loss. That's the darker area. So as you scroll up and down, you can see the extent of the bone loss. And on the labial, you can still see I have a labial plate, which is great, labial bone. Can't tell you how important all this is when you're taking out these teeth. So this is the implant ready to be restored. So we took out the tooth, we grafted, waited 4 months, placed the implant, and 4 months later began the restoration. And so this is really the true challenge in the posterior. A lot of our implants are placed way subgingival because that's where the bone is. So you got to deal with tissue, you got to deal with contacts, and you want to have a passive seating, and you want to have access to placement. And these implants are truly challenging. So this is how I best describe it in my courses. It's 4:30, it's my last case of the day, and I don't want any stress. I hate stress. So what are you thinking about at the end of the day? You're out there. What are you thinking about at the end of your day? I know what I'm thinking about, and it's Tito's. So basically, I want to have what I call a no stress delivery. So let's talk about it. This is called a hybrid approach. This avoids the cement issues entirely. This avoids the proximal issues of draw of the neighboring teeth entirely. This allows you to know if you have a passive abutment fit, which is huge. Now think about this. If you were going to do a screw down and you're screwing this down, now you got to clear the contacts, adjust the contacts, and keep screwing it back and forth, in and out of the mouth. And finally, as it seats comfortably and you're torquing it in, is it a passive fit? I think we guess a lot with screw downs. This eases the issue of accessibility because it's a two-part implant. This may add a little bit more of time, but there's no stress involved. I'm going to walk you through this. And the different cements that you can use are based on the abutment height. So we can use different cements based on the abutment height. And you're going to go, well, what about Ceramer? Ceramer's fine, but if I don't have enough retention, I'm not going to use Ceramer. And you'll see why. So the idea of a hybrid is a screw-ment approach. It will come back from the lab in two pieces, the abutment, the crown, and there's a hole in the crown that allows me to screw it into place. Routinely, I'm doing all mine are milled abutments. And so the first question is, when I get it back, can I use traditional Ceramer cement? Or if it's too short, then do I use a resin cement? So here's the healing abutment in place in another case. I've removed the healing cap, and the first challenge is passive seating of the implant. So imagine if you were just going to screw this into place, it's got to slide on the same direction through the contacts into the implant, through the contacts, through the tissue. Very challenging. So the first thing I do is I take the custom abutment and I passively screw it into place. I don't want to use a lot of pressure. I just want to see, does it screw right into place? If it screws right into place, I know I have a great connection fit, period. So let's go back. That's part one. Part two. Now I take the crown. I'm just trying in a crown like any normal crown delivery. And routinely, one of the contacts is a little tight. Fine. Now, let me go back again. This is now torqued into place. That abutment is torqued, so you're going to need two screws. So I'm going to torque this into place, try in my crown. If the crown is tight, what do? I take a little piece of articulating paper where it's tight, and then I put the crown back in. I then take the crown back out and I adjust the area. So here it's a occlusal view of just a mesial. Mesial was too tight. I use these wonderful GC forceps to take my crowns in and out. It's easy. It doesn't score the crown itself. The grit is on the left. These are indispensable. They're made by GC America. And the little yellow tabs can be sterilized. We throw them away and use new ones on each patient because the new ones just grip that much better, especially with the grit. As I take them off, I can do selective adjusting. I don't want to wipe away the entire mesial contact. I'll take a red or yellow diamond finishing burr and just adjust the area and try it in again. And sure enough, when I tried it again, it went down further, but now the distal contact was tight. So what am I going to do? I'm going to take the distal, I'm going to take the crown out, put the articulating paper back in, put the crown back in, take the crown out, and obviously adjust the distal again. Once the contacts are passive, I will use zirconia polishers. Let's polish the interproximal areas. Now I take my x-ray to make sure my fit is perfect. Once I know my fit is perfect, I'm going to adjust the occlusion the way I like my adjusted occlusion, which would be very light-centric. No working or balancing interferences. Once I've adjusted it, I'm also going to polish the occlusal with my zirconia polishers. Why do I love electric handpieces? Because it has water. So I can use water. I don't want to use just air. Another reason for electrics. Now, you've got your crown ready. Everything fits. So here's the magic. I place some Teflon tape inside my abutment. It's all I do. I clean out the inside of the crown with Ivoclean or Zirconia, and they're both zirconia cleansers. Now, if you're using a metal crown with PFM, that's fine, but routinely most of my stuff is zirconia at this point, my crowns with implants. So I like to clean them, obviously. I'm going to rinse that away. And now the next question is retention. What kind of cement? Does it vary? And the answer is yes. So what this study did by Ivoclean was really quite interesting. It measured different cements and their strength, and also what if you used more dye spacer, could you get more retention? This really adds up to a lot more about your lab communication. So the ranking of cements in this study that was presented in the study is really just an arbitrary guide. And I'm going to go through them because the resin cement specifically formulated for implants demonstrated significant differences in retention, of course. Equally, the resin-based cement showed significantly higher decementation loads. In other words, you had to put a lot more force to get them to loosen up versus a non-eugenol zinc oxide provisional cement like Tempon. So the overall highest tensile resistance was multi-link. And multi-link was number one, and then they had Cem-Implant, and then MIS, and Improv, and Premier Implant, and S-Temp, and Impla-Temp. So they all ranged. Multi-link was the strongest. Again, it's all about what you're looking for. Study also said that if you increase the cement gap from 20 to 40 microns, you will improve the retention significantly for the higher strength cements. So if you've got a short crown and short limited space and you want to try this approach, you may tell your lab, can you create a little bit more dye spacer or a little bit more cement gap when you make the crown such that you'll have more retention. Another pearl from the study. This is what you would talk to your lab about. Don't assume the lab knows this. In the lab, if they make it too much of a dye space, then the crown's rotating, and I don't want that. I sometimes will ask for a little extra dye space for my cement if it's a short crown, short abutment. So if you're using a resin cement, the next question is, some will ask you to put a zirconia primer on the internal surface and create a more hydrophobic surface for the resin cement. You just have to know. You just have to know. So I'm going to show you now the cement loaded into the crown. This was a resin cement. And I've loaded the resin cement into the crown. And well, the first thing you do is you put the crown in. You have the patient bite down, confirm it. You can even put a cottonwood stick in immediately for a second or two, couple seconds, make sure the crown's down all the way. And the first thing you do then is you take out the cottonwood stick and take a micro brush through the occlusal opening and go clean out all the cement. Just clean out all the cement in the occlusal opening until you see your Teflon tape. That's it. Don't worry about the cement around the crown. Don't worry about the cement. I don't care about the gingival cement. Just clean out the occlusal access cement and have the patient bite down for 5 minutes. At the 5-minute mark, all you're going to now do is unscrew the crown. So what do? As long as you clear that access hole, now you're going to go in with an Explorer, clean out the Teflon tape, and unscrew the implant. unscrew the crown. It's that simple. Now the implant crown comes out. You can see the meticulous fit to the abutment. So you've now unscrewed the whole thing. And now all you're going to do is take a plastic scaler, plastic, not metal. I don't want to score the abutment, and just peel away the cement. That's all you have to do. The site is now checked and cleansed. So you can now take this crown, put it back in 2% chlorhexidine after the cement is being cleaned off. Now, some people like to do this outside the mouth. I don't. And the reason is I know if I cement it inside the mouth, it fits exactly the same way. If there's any rotation in this and you do it outside the mouth and it's off, it won't fit perfectly. I love to do this in the mouth. Love to. I checked the site. Now I've just stored it in the 2% chlorhexidine. And again, just cleansing it. I'm now going to get my second screw. I'm going to torque it into place and it will go through the contacts, firmly into place passively. I'll place the Teflon tape into the access hole. And in this case, I used a fast setting glass ionomer. I triturated it, inserted it into the access, and I put a little piece of Ziploc bag over the top, and I have the patient bite down for 3 minutes. At the 3-minute mark, I make some final adjustments. I put a little resin coat over the glass ionomer to protect the glass ionomer. I light cure for 20 seconds, and the case is done. Total time takes about 20 minutes, but there's no stress. How many times are you trying to screw these in and the patient can't open enough, and you're unscrewing and you drop the wrench and you're thinking, God, they didn't swallow it. You take all that stress out of the equation. So again, if I've got enough retention, I'll use Ceramer. If I think it's a shorter crown, then I'll use a resin cement. And do I think the resin cements really matter? I'm going to say I don't really think so, not that much. But I use permanent resin cements. I do not buy implant cements for this because all I'm doing is cementing it, unscrewing it, cleaning out the cement, and now putting it firmly back into place. Our last case. Some multiple units, natural teeth and an implant. So on the model, you can see that I'm going to have to cement this. It's beautifully milled. It's on a iTero 3D model. And, I took, traditional impression, no. I totally scanned this with a scan body and the, obviously pack cord around the 2 natural teeth. So there's your final implant. We're going to try in each crown. Here's your abutment. So the first thing I do is I take it off the model and I soak it in 2% chlorhexidine for 30 seconds to a minute. I screw it into place. First thing I'm looking for, is it passive? The patient's temporized in the anterior quadrant. This was the first quadrant we were finishing. You can see the abutment now is torqued into place, screw 1. The access would have been through the incisal tip. I'm going to try on each crown individually. Why? I want to check the margins and the bite. So I try in the canine first, and the first bicuspid, then the second bicuspid. I check the margins like I'm doing a natural case. Then I check the occlusion. Then I check the contacts all together. Once the contacts are down, final occlusal analysis is down, I'm ready to cement. So this is one of my favorite new little products. It's from Voco. And what you do is you just, after you torque down your abutment and you're really ready for the final cementation, what you will then do is you'll just put the Teflon tape in, and clip flow is this clear translucent material, and it will just fill your orifice up, and you light cure it, and that's what I'm now using to fill my implant access holes for my cement downs. So let's go through this one more time. I'm going to apply mineral oil and lightly air dry. I've got my crown ready. So I've tried my crown in, it's ready to go. I've placed mineral oil, I've air dried. I'm now going to inject the Futar bite registration into it, slowly pulling out to create a handle. I will put a 2-round burr notch on the buckle. And in this case, I'm going to hand mix the Ionomer. Why? Because I've got both. It's actually less expensive, I think, if you do the hand mix. But I have both, the trituration and the hand mix. 2 scoops, 1 drop. It's the only cement I'm going to tell you to use because of the studies. So the assistant will mix this, and she will lightly place a layer inside the crown. I'm going to place the crown onto my FUTAR registration and immediately remove it. There's upon immediate removal, and I'm going to wipe the excess around the inside, around the outside. As I go to the mouth, I will hold it down firmly, confirm the bite, and I will blast it with water. I rarely see any cement, but I'm still going to blast it with water and use thick floss. So I want to bring the syringe as close to the tooth as I can. You can use the floss after the spray, and I just prefer a thicker floss. Setting time is 5 minutes, so you have plenty of time. And now I got to cement these other 2 crowns. I've got some bleeding gums. Oh yeah, I'm the only one in the world who has bleeding gums from temporaries. So what do? My favorite product is Traxident. I mean, I love this. It'll stop minor bleeding in 2 minutes. I'll just place it in the area, and then it's an aluminum chloride. And after 2 minutes, with some compression, whether a bite cap or a cotton roll, I'll just rinse it away because you can't cement in blood. This is the Traxident cap. It's all made from Premier. And I just have the patient bite down for 2 minutes. And after the 2 minutes, I rinse heavily the area and remove any debris on the tooth. Now, I can tell you that there are some really cool new machines. And there's a new machine called Ivoclean, which allows me to use small particles of alumina oxide 29 micron or products that are Novamin based, and they're called Sylc. And this is how I routinely clean all my restorations before I cement today. So what I would do is I'll micro-etch them versus using a 2% chlorhexidine. And I really, after I use Traxident, you got to clean that abutment. You just have to clean those abutments. So the bleeding stopped, you've cleaned the teeth. And in this case, I'm just loading with a resin calcium-based cement. I place it, both crowns in, finger pressure, then confirm with biting. And I will again I love calcium releasing cements. So I'll use Ionomer for traditional cements also, but in this case, they were a little bit smaller, a little less retentive. So I went with a product called Theracem. And I know I've given a lecture on this, a webinar on this, and this is a self-adhesive fluoride calcium releasing luting cement. So I'm subgingival, which most of my crowns are, because I don't do crowns just to do crowns. Usually I'm taking out old crowns or large old restorations. You do not need to prime the zirconia with this material. All you would do is clean it with Ivoclean, dry it, and place Theracem in. It's that simple. So finger pressure for the first 10 or 15 seconds, confirm the bite. Then all you're going to do is spot tack cure, and this will just peel off easily. And that's all you want. I don't want any bleeding. I will re-tack cure interproximally and bring the floss up and out, not up and down. And again, I don't want to create bleeding. Total setting time for this is 4 minutes, and when it's done full setting, I'll re-cure all the margins for 4 minutes. So this is the final delivery. 2 different cements in this case, implant crown going in first, and then my 2 zirconia crowns, probably with overlaid porcelain, going in second. On the dot, it's 7:45. So Lisa, I'm going to turn this over to questions. And before we go out of this slide, and you'll bring in the questions, for those of you who have questions that like to reach out personally, this is my email. It's lou@catapulteducation.com. Just shoot me an email if you want. Obviously, this is stored on file, but it's my pleasure to share with you anything I can. I'll answer some questions, and then I'll let you all get back to your Tuesday night activities. So first I'll ask you the question is, do you always use zirconia crowns over your implants? And I will say traditionally of late, the answer is yes. I really do. We can layer porcelain beautifully. You can use Emax, but routinely I'm using zirconia with layered porcelain in the anterior and the bicuspid regions, and monolithic zirconia in the posterior because nobody can see back there. And I'm using tri-layered zirconia, which is gorgeous. Another reason I like to use zirconia is it's more fracture resistant. When you're putting holes through these crowns or adjusting them, more chances of fracture. So for that, I really have become much more of a zirconia guy with that. There's a question, and I'm just going to read them. So in the hybrid case, we could have planned it to be screw retained from the start. What's the advantage of the hybrid then? Okay, so Hatan, I want to go back to this. When I do a screw retained crown, I like to do them when I've got what I call shorter interproximal areas, and my implant is basically at the gingival level. It's not 3 millimeters or 4 millimeters subgingival. When I'm in the posterior part of the mouth and I'm screwing in an implant in tooth number 3 or 14 or sometimes 15, man, it is hard to get access with that driver. And now as you screw in and out between teeth, it is really challenging to get that implant in and out. Each time you screw, if you come into any contact problem, you've got to adjust the contacts and screw them in and out. The beauty of the hybrid system is, you know, your implant abutment goes in passively, you adjust the crowns, then you cement the crown to the abutment, unscrew the whole thing, clean the cement out, and boom, it's much less stressful. So that's why I absolutely love it versus doing a traditional screw down. Thank you for the compliments. Okay, do you clean out the mineral oil on the bite registration before inserting the crown? And the answer is yes, Shun. So what I will do on most zirconia crowns, I'll just do a light micro-etching, rinse that away, and then Ivoclean. You must remove the mineral oil. Otherwise, the cement will not adapt well to the inside of the crown. So absolutely, you want to clean that out before you go to final cementation. Okay. There are more questions, so the question was, can you please talk about how you clean natural abutments after using the Traxident without reinitiating the bleeding? So Barry, it's really quite fascinating. I've used micro-etchers in the past, and if you angle the micro-etcher too much, then you get bleeding. So I've been using this AquaCare system. It's out of England, and I use Sylc. It's a Novamin product. These particles are so freaking tiny. And so what happens is I come at it not straight vertical down, but I come at it at an angle, low pressure, and it allows me to clean the teeth almost instantaneously, but it's micro-etching with water and the particles. It's water and the particles. That's one way. The other way is then routinely you can take a 2% chlorhexidine. The other way is Ultradent makes these fine little brushes that would allow you to clean your preparations also. So Ultradent makes these fine little brushes that I'm evaluating now through Catapult, which also can clean your teeth. So I think no matter what, you have to clean no matter what, because you've got aluminum chloride on the tooth now, and no matter what, your preparations need to be clean. So those are the 3 ways I'm doing it. So Tom, I thank you for the compliment. Do I have printouts? You can, if you want to, you can see this online. If you want to print out, text me and I'll send you all a PDF of the program tonight. It's my pleasure. There were a couple other questions I don't want to ignore, and then I'll say goodnight to everybody and let you have an hour or two before you hit the sack. One of the questions was from Jason about when you have a 2-stage approach with implant surgery, after 4 or 5 weeks, the cover screw becomes exposed. Do you leave it or do you remove it and place the healing cap? We leave it. We don't want to adjust the area at all. We just leave the exposed cover screw. That's not a problem at all, Jason, in our practice. And then Jason also asked, what is your recommendation to keep flaps from opening prematurely? And I go, great suturing with mattress techniques and associated. My surgeons place all my implants. I got 2 great surgeons, and it's all about suturing techniques. And I'm not one to, even though I do all my own grafting and socket grafting, I'll just say it's all about the suture technique. I think that's all the questions, Lisa. I actually finished 5 minutes ahead of time, which never happens. There's an easy quiz for everybody, and I hope we see you back at Catapult Education in the future. We'll all be back. Lisa, I'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, and thank you everyone for joining us this evening. And yes, there will be a short quiz that you'll need to take in order to get your certificate. Instructions for that are going to be emailed to everyone tonight in about 1 hour from now. So keep an eye in your inbox, or you might need to also check your spam folder if you don't see the email in your inbox. The webinar was recorded and will be posted probably by the end of next week for everybody who would like to view it. And once again, a big thank you to our program sponsor, DOXA, and to Dr. Graham for his time tonight. Thank you, everyone.